Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. And today we're going to start part 1 of what I'm calling Restoring the Galaxy. And if you recall, I had a very close friend of mine from college, Dave. He's a subscriber to the channel, and he sent me an incredible donation of this vintage Star Wars collector's case that's in very good shape. And inside are 2 almost complete trays of figures. I also got a Boba Fett that's actually being worked on right now. But in this case, we have all different sorts of figures from the original trilogy, like that. And I thought today we would start the restoration process of a couple. Now, for those who follow along with my diorama build series, I'm still waiting for some supplies to come in for the swamp diorama that we started, and we will get back to that. But until such time as those supplies come in, I thought we would do some restoration. So let's start with 3 characters from Return of the Jedi, and I'm going to start with Gamorrean Guard, Lando, and Weequay. We're going to start with these, and what we're going to do is we're going to take these all the way to completion. So we're going to clean them, we're going to wash them, we're going to repaint them, touch them up, and then re-accessorize them with all original accessories, and then we're going to place them back into my Star Wars vintage display. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to lay this towel out here. I'm going to take this. This is nearly boiled water. It's probably about 160 degrees Fahrenheit, that water. And what we're going to do is we're going to line up these figures right here so you can take a look at them there. All right. And the third one, we're going to put Weequay right in the hot water first. And what I do, my solution that I use, is I'm going to take a little bit of this rubbing alcohol, pop a little bit into the water, and that kind of acts as a degreaser and a scent reducer. And then I'm going to take some Dawn Power Wash and a soft toothbrush, and we're going to let the figures sit in the Dawn Power Wash. So we're going to put all these figures in for now, let them sort of soak for a moment and get ready. And then we're going to hit them with the Dawn Power Wash after soaking for about 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start getting the Dawn Power Wash ready. Okay, we're going to take Weequay out first. We're going to spray him. And just let the power wash do its thing for a minute. Lando too. And then Gamorrean. Power wash, I find, really does a nice job cleaning this up. You really only have to let it sit for just a few minutes, or a few seconds even. So I'm going to take Weequay and take a brush. Just going to start scrubbing them. It's just as simple as that. What we're trying to do is get the surface dust and grease and grime off of them. And I've noticed on some of these figures, these 3, actually all the figures in the case, but these 3, there are some scuff marks and some what almost look like marker or crayon on some of the figures. So we're going to take those off with a special process. Just sort of lightly go over. This is a nice soft bristle brush. Nothing too abrasive. You're just trying to get the surface grease and grime off. You want to make sure you get in between these are all 5 points of articulation classic Kenner figures, so you got to make sure you rotate the arms, get the joints anywhere where it's going to build up. And he's got that sort of braided head tail thing, so you want to get in there. All right, then we're going to give him a little dunky do. See what we got. And already, wow, what a difference. I figure it just brightens right up once you get the grime and the grease off of them and everything. Look at how bright that is. It really looks good already, huh? We probably won't have to do too much to this figure. But man, look at that. Wow, what a difference, huh? It actually took some of those markings right off the legs. So, all right, let's do the next one. We're going to pick up old Lando here. And off camera, what I've been doing is I have been tracking down original helmets and weapons and capes and things for all these figures. and they've been arriving in eBay, and I've got them in bags that I've been waiting to add them to. So it's going to be really fun when we touch these all up and then add the original Kenner accessories to them and complete the figures. That's really going to be exciting. I get a kick out of stuff like that. Just get in between the crotch again. Yep. And then as you can see here, so I don't know if you can tell, but there's some marks, like almost crayon or marker marks on the legs there. And these don't come off with the soap and water. But I have a way of taking those off. We're going to use some lighter fluid to get those things off. Some just regular lighter fluid and a cotton swab, and you'll see that those typically come off. If that doesn't work, I got something else. Sometimes they're really stubborn. You might need to try a couple of things, but. And then also, here, we're going to dunk this guy now. And wow, yeah, that figure looks really good too. That looks real nice. Now, we're going to work on those spots there, those little marker spots. And we're also going to touch up those boots. See how there's that paint wear on the boots? And then maybe touch up a little bit of the silver if we can. Maybe we'll make it close. But he's looking really good too. And then finally, we're going to take the third guy, the big old Gamorrean guard. He's been sitting in the power wash for a while, so we're going to get him cleaned up. Now, the Gamorrean guard is one of my all-time favorite characters and figures from the OT. And this vintage Gamorrean guard, I have quite an army of these. And when we're done restoring and completing him, we're going to put him among the rest of the Gamorrean guard figures that I have, and you'll be able to see. I think I have maybe like 7 or 8 of them, 9 of them. I can't remember. We'll have to find out. But this is a great figure. And interestingly, they actually reused the Gamorrean guard figure for Robin Hood, the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie that came out maybe like in 1990 or something. Friar Tuck, the big old fat bald guy who hung out with Robin Hood, they used the Gamorrean guard for the Friar Tuck base. And they took the Gamorrean head off and gave him a balding face, and but it was the same character, and they put a brown soft goods cloak around him to make him look like a friar. But that was the Gamorrean guard figure. It would be kind of fun to own that figure and place him next to the Gamorrean guard, almost as like a comparison, which I always thought would be cool. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll get one of those. So let's see. We're going to dunk him into water now. See how it looks. Oh yeah. Oh man, that really comes alive too. All these figures, even just dunking them in the water and cleaning them up and getting the grime and grease off really, really helps. All right. So there's that. Part 1 is done. The dunk and rinse. Wash, rinse, degrease, degrime. Stay tuned for part 2 when we start touching these figures up. Okay, now that the figures are dried off, they were in their bath of rubbing alcohol, hot water, and then I sprayed them down with a power washer. Now here they are. They're pretty much all dried off. And then on a couple of the figures, this one actually not so much, but what we're going to do is we're going to go across each figure, and we're going to take off the types of marker and crayon and marks that the soap and water didn't take off. And then we're going to hit any touch-up spots like these Lando boots, and we're going to try to restore these figures minimally as possible. You know, we're not going to repaint the entire boot if I can match the boot. And the nice thing about old Kenner figures is more or less each color that they used is pretty much like right off the shelf. They didn't do a lot of custom mixing and matching. So normally you can find these colors pretty available at a hobby shop, or minimal mixing that's pretty close. So it's not a big deal. But the first thing we're gonna do, like I said, is we're gonna take off some of these marks. So we've got Lando there. Let's take a look. Is there anything else? Yeah, Lando's got a couple more on that side. See if we can get those off. And then let's see. Weequay. Does Weequay have anything going on? Weequay looks pretty good, man. This is like a mint figure, just a little grimy and dirty. So I don't think he's going to require too much. And then the Gamorrean guard. I thought I saw maybe on the feet. Oh, they're pretty good. I mean, Now, there's definitely a lot of touch up on some of those figures from the box, but Weequay and Gamorrean look pretty good. I think we're going to leave those alone. We're going to just see if we can get Lando's legs cleaned up a little bit. So the first thing I like to do, there's two products that can remove things well. One is Ronson oil, which is just like your standard lighter fluid. And sometimes we can use this. Now, Goof Off Pro Strength, you have to be very careful with this because it tends to melt and warp the plastic if you use too much or go too aggressively. So we're gonna put this in reserve. We're gonna try to go with the Ronson oil. The best way to go with that is just take Q-tip, just a regular old cotton swab, and we're gonna hit a little bit of the Q-tip with the lighter fluid. Oop, got it all over Shannon's desk. She's gonna love that. There we go, a lot of lighter fluid. And then let's see what happens when we apply it to this. So usually with a little bit of rubbing, it'll come off. Now, let's see what happens here. Looks like some of it came off. It's hard to say. Let's see. Keep it going. Yeah, it's coming off. It's coming off slowly but surely. I think. And let's see, just keep going. That's working pretty good. A little bit of lighter fluid, a little bit of rubbing. And you can see that's definitely coming off. That's definitely coming off. So a little bit more rubbing. It doesn't take much, really doesn't. And the nice thing about it, the legs are cast in this off-white plastic and the brown is painted on, so you're not gonna rub off white paint, you're just gonna rub off the scuff. So let's take a look. I would say that's pretty close. Well, let's go a little bit more here. A couple more seconds. And I think we're gonna call that a success. That's pretty damn good. And you'll notice that mark is gone. That mark is gone. Maybe that one up there is still a little bit more. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put a little bit more of the lighter fluid on it. Just soak that cotton swab down. And we're gonna hit that spot a little bit more. And I think that's a wrap. That is a wrap. So we're gonna just touch that up like that. And then over on this side, I did see some on this side, didn't we? Yeah, there they are right there. See that sort of like mid-calf right there? So we're gonna just do the same thing over here. Here we go. And sometimes different marks or scuffs are made by different markers or crayons or whatever, and sometimes you might have to switch up the fluid that you use to remove them. But it looks like this is going to work over here too. Take a look. What do we got? They're still there, huh? Oh, those are tough. All right, these guys are tough. We're going to go a little bit more aggressively. You know what it is those are actually, they're not just marks, but they're actually like scrapes on the figure. And so that scuff mark, that decolorization that's happening there is actually in scuff grooves, not just on the surface. So it's a little bit harder to get out, but I think we're doing it. No, that still does not want to come out. So we're gonna try one more thing here. Let's see if we can get that little spot on the top. Nope, that just does not want to come off. That's weird. It looks like it's the same thing, but that does not want to come off with the same old lighter fluid. Oh, that came off. Did it? It's hard to say. No, it really didn't. Okay. I'm gonna try one more thing. So We tried, this was the lighter fluid, so let's just try a little tiny little bit of the goof off. Now, if you're gonna use this, go sparingly. So I'm gonna get a whole new Q-tip setup over here. And we're gonna put just a little dab of this on the Q-tip. Okay, there we go. Now, let's see if the goof off works on this. Now this is definitely a little bit more aggressive, for sure. And I would say that in about 2 seconds, yeah, buddy, that came off. That's entirely gone. So the goof off really works. It worked very, very well for this figure. So now I don't know if you can tell, but right here, there's a difference. So the legs are cast in this off-white plastic and there's brown paint, but the butt here is brown plastic with white paint. Okay, now we get to the final phase of this. And really what we're trying to do is we've discovered that Weequay and the Gamorrean guard are pretty much flawless. There's really no paint deterioration or scraping or anything on it. But Lando does have, we've gone through the process of restoring and taking off the paint marks and other things. But here on this figure, you can see clearly that there is paint wear and just white plastic underneath the boots. So what we're going to try to do is match that the best we can. So I've gone through my paint collection and I've come up with really 3 colors that I think are pretty close. So we're going to put Lando's boots right there, and then on this little file card here I have 3 paint samples. The first one here is this model color paint, and it's called leather brown, and it's a very dark, rich leather brown. And if you compare it to Lando's boots, it's pretty close. It's a pretty close match, but I think we might be able to do better. And then here's a slightly lighter brown, and this one is called mahogany brown. And I think somewhere between mahogany and leather brown we can get there. And then I also have just a small dab of black paint that we can use to sort of custom blend these. And then in this cup here, this is a small mixing cup I have with just a little bit of water. And then this will be the mixing tray that we're going to use, and we can just take the brush, dab it in, and thin the paint out. So let's see how close we get. So first off, we're going to take the brown, just the brown leather, see how close that is. I mean, that is pretty close. It's a little bit on the dark side, as you can tell. Maybe you can tell. It's pretty close, man. Oh man, that's close, but it's a little bit dark. All right, so we're gonna do that. I've just got a paper towel off camera here. Let's try the mahogany brown and see how we're doing. And I think you can tell that's a little bit too light. So that's okay. That's all right. We're gonna get it. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna wipe off the paint on both boots. All right. So let's see if we take a little bit of this dark brown. I think we're closer to dark brown than we are the light brown. So let's just try it and see what we got. Let's take that, mix it off in the bowl here. Give me a little bit more of this color, see what we got. Now let's see if we're close. Let's go right here. Holy smokes, that's pretty close. That is pretty close. I don't know if you can tell, but man, that's a close. I think that's pretty close right off the bat. So it's about 2 parts dark brown to 1 part light brown. Let's get a little closer. Maybe just a little bit more of this dark. Mix it in there. Let's see how that looks. Let's see, is that it right there? Oh man, that is an absolute dead ringer. You won't be able to tell. So I'm gonna wipe off this on the right. And now we know for certain it's this mix right here. So let's not overpaint it. We're just gonna touch up the parts that are just a little bit worn. This right boot has a little bit more scuffing. And man, oh man, that is pretty close. We're just gonna go along the ends there. Right off like that. Now, some people will add a clear coat to the paint, and sometimes I do that. But sometimes that clear coat is just enough when it's in the mix to change the color of the paint. So in this case, I'm going to add the clear coat after I get the paint color right, okay? So there's that. I think that's very, very close. Very, very close indeed. And I'm just going along the very, maybe like a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch along it. And I'm gonna get there and there. Let's see how that looks. It's pretty close. You know what though? I feel like it's still a little bit too light. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of the dark. Add the light to the dark. Let's see if we can get closer with that. Let's see how we're doing there. Boy, oh boy, that looks pretty good to me. I think that's going to be close. When that dries, I think that's going to be a dead ringer. That's what we're calling that, Lando Boots Brown. We just made a new color. That's Vallejo Lando Boots Brown. So customizing is fun, and diorama building is even more fun, and restorations are really fun as well. So when you can take something old and bring it back to life and add it to a vintage Kenner display, that's super fun. So I think, let's see what that looks like. We're gonna give that a couple of minutes to dry. We'll come back and revisit it and see what we've got. So we've given the Lando boots a chance to dry, and it is pretty much a dead ringer. I think, hopefully you can tell, that's a very, very close color match. I don't think I can get it much closer than that. And quite frankly, if there's any color variation at all, I kind of like it. It makes it look a little bit worn perhaps. So now what I do is, this is a step that's pretty critical. So to prevent it from coming off, what we do now is we take this satin varnish, which I really like this particular brand, and I'm gonna add it to the paint color that I know is correct. Just a tiny little bit, you don't need much, right? So there's that tiny little dollop, and it's sitting on the semi-dry paint color, and that's just fine, because we know that's the right paint color now. So now we're gonna go back with our brush. We're gonna add a little bit of semi-protectant to what we just did. And when this dries, it's gonna be the same sheen as the original Kenner paint. And so really, a light hand is better. You really don't have to go crazy with this. All right, you're just touching it up. And like I said, it's gonna be a little bit wet color right now, but it's gonna dry and it's gonna be the same satin color as the original boot paint. And we'll go over, we'll let this dry, and we'll revisit it, and I think we'll find that it's pretty close. And that way you have a color matched varnish for the paint. So the idea being, you want to keep that paint color that you've mixed, save a little bit, just reserve a tiny little bit of it to add to the varnish, and that way you know that it's going to dry the same color. So let's do that. That's going to look really good. So there's those. Yep, that's going to match that varnish. So having said that, let's give it a moment. We'll kind of revisit it, and we'll see what it looks like when it's dry. Okay, so the boot has now had time to dry, and I think you'll find I am very pleased with that color match. I think that looks really, really good. Now, it's slightly glossier than the other boot, but that is going to fade over time. Remember, this is still very brand new satin. So satin does not dry completely shiny. When you come back in 24 hours, that's going to dull down to the same exact boot color as the flat paint. And so the other figures required very little in the way of just other than a good cleaning. So Weequay and the Gamorrean guard are complete. Lando now looks like a completely restored figure. We got all of the markings off of his legs. We retouched up the boots. He looks like he came right off the card. But let's be real. These figures are not complete yet. These are just unaccessorized figures. And there's nothing worse than seeing incomplete action figures. So over the course of the last couple of months, I have been collecting original Star Wars accessories, and I completed these first three. So I got these off of a trusted eBay seller who deals in original parts. And you know, you can still find deals on these. These are, let's say these are between $10 and $15 per accessory. And so let's do it. Let's complete it, and then we'll do some completed shots, and we'll call this. Now, if you stay till the way end of the video, all the way to the end, you will see the next 3 figures that we're going to that we're going to restore. So please stick around for the last so you can see what's to come. Okay, so let's start with Weequay. Weequay is going to take his pike. And this pike was seen in a lot of different Return of the Jedi figures. Weequay, Lando, Klaatu, a couple other figures had this particular accessory. And I like this figure because he holds it across his body like this, which is kind of unique for a Star Wars figure. You don't see that too often. So he's now complete. And look how good he looks. That looks really good. And we'll do some turnaround shots of all these. And then we get to, let's wait, let's do the Gamorrean next. And this is the original Gamorrean axe, which I absolutely love this accessory. And I like to have him hold it like that. There he is. He is now complete. And then we get to Lando, the one who required the most work. Let's see if the payoff is there. So here's an original Lando skiff guard helmet. And here's another pike, same as Weequay. This was what he came with. And there's Lando, complete. 3 completely restored, cleaned, accessorized Return of the Jedi Kenner Star Wars figures. This is exciting. I love doing this. We've got several more to go in the case. So let's do some close-up turnarounds and maybe do a little tiny mini diorama here, and we'll call this done. And don't forget, stay around to the very end where I show you a quick pick of the next 3 figures to be restored. Thank you so much.